Hello everyone and welcome to an amazing game that took place yesterday in round 1 of the European Club Cup. It is the match England versus Ukraine, and on board 1 we have Bodhana Sivanandan, or maybe it's Sivanandan, versus Mariya Muzychuk. And in terms of rating, Ukraine is by far the favorite here. I think, okay, here the difference is maybe 200, over 250 rating points, but on other boards it gets even to 400 and beyond. So, yes, Ukraine is the huge favorite, not just in this matchup, but also in pretty much all of the matchups. I think there are maybe 2 players that are higher rated than Mariya Muzychuk on board 1 in the entire event, Divya Deshmukh and Nana Zagnidze. And yeah, it's, in terms of actual strength, you will see that rating is not everything, but in terms of who's the favorite, Ukraine is by far the favorite here. And first, when you guys recommended this game, I thought, okay, I mean, a fluke can happen, and a fluke happens to anyone. As Bodhana here, this is the first time we're featuring her on the channel. She's 10 years old, and she was born in 2015, the same year that Mariya Muzychuk, for example, won her Grandmaster title and also became a women's world champion. So it's really a wild matchup, but yeah. That was, I couldn't have been mistaken more. So let's check out the game. Bodhana with white opens with pawn to e4. We have the Sicilian from Mariya, pawn to c5. We have knight to f3, pawn to d6, and now bishop to b5 check. Okay, we have knight to d7. Castles kingside and pawn to a6, chasing the bishop away, but bishop captures on d7. You could also go back with bishop to d3, bishop to e2, but bishop captures on d7, bishop captures and pawn to d4. Okay, all been played before, nothing new here. Captures, but now there is no knight on b8, so you can recapture with the queen. We have knight to f6 and bishop to g5. We have pawn to e6 and knight b to d2. Again, all been played before. Bishop to c6, putting pressure on that e4 pawn. And for example, rook f to d1 has been played in a couple of top-level games. Peter Svidler played it against Topalov in 2013. Karyakin played it against Toparin and some other games in top level. But here we have knight c4. And knight c4 is very, very interesting because you leave the e4 pawn undefended, but you defend the b2 pawn. Doesn't really make all that much sense, but for example, b5 is the move that is the most played here. But if you accept to go into this tricky line of bishop captures on e4, then bishop captures on f6, removes the defender of the bishop, and now look at this, queen captures on f6, queen captures on e4, and now pawn to d5. This is how you win back your piece. Let's say queen e2, captures on c4, queen captures, and now bishop to e7, castles, and so on. So nothing spectacular. White will have a 3 against 2 on the queen side, and it can be played. It's perfectly fine position, and this is what most people go for. But here we have bishop to e7 by Mariya, and it is now, as of move 10, that we have a completely new game. Very interesting, as Bodhana is also 10. We have bishop captures on f6, g captures. Of course, the bishop is stuck here guarding the d6 pawn, but as a knight player, or in some other Sicilians, it is not uncommon to keep the king in the center of the board and create this massive pawn structure in the center. Rook a to d1, we have pawn to b5, attacking the knight, knight e3, and rook to g8. And Mariya can be very, very happy with her position. This is a dream position, I mean, to have on move 13 with black. So it can only get better from here. We have king to h1, sort of unpinning from the g file, but also aligning the king with the bishop on c6 can be an easy move to make. Queen to c7, and now rook f to e1. And this is a perfectly fine position for black, and you can choose to go with something like bishop to b7 and then rook to d8, keeping the king in the center of the board, or even pawn to f5, forcing matters is also very nice, just trying to open up this diagonal, put the queen on b7, and then try to pressure that g2 pawn. So these are all possible ideas. Depends whether you want the queen-bishop battery or the bishop-queen battery. But here we have castles queen side. And this was completely unnecessary. The king was perfectly fine in the center. And here, Mariya just gave Bodhana something to cling on, or, something to hone in on. And she starts with pawn to c4. And it's, a move that shouldn't really pose any problems for black with the king on e8. With the king on c8, that's a different story. We have pawn to b4. Of course, Mariya wants to keep the c file closed. And now pawn to a3, just opening up the position. Interestingly, knight to d5 is also very much playable here because there's no good way to capture the knight. Of course, this is impossible. You're attacking the bishop. You're going to put the rook on c1, and black will just get crushed. So instead, after b4, we have a3, queen to b7, again, ignoring what white is doing, just aligning nicely with the g2 pawn. Knight to d2, and now pawn to b3. Again, trying to keep the position closed, where knight to d5 still is a great move for white. Bodhana first decides to improve the position. Rook c1, and now she's preparing knight to d5. We have pawn to f5 and knight to d5. And okay, again, doesn't look like much. You're just going to leave the knight there. Bishop to g5, going after the knight on d2. Now trying to remove as many useful attackers from white as possible. Rook to c3. Now the b3 pawn is also weak, so maybe a5 should have been played at some point. But you don't have time for everything. Bishop captures on d2. Queen captures, and now f captures on e4. And it's a crazy position. Bodhana is winning here. But there's only one move that wins the game. So it's not an easy move to find. Feel free to pause the video and win the game for Bodhana while I give you a couple of seconds. Believe it or not, it is queen to e3. That is the move. And if you're wondering, maybe some of you thought, well, can't we just go queen d1? No, because if you play queen d1, then let's say pawn to f5, and you play rook captures on b3, there's queen a7. By playing the queen e3, you prevent this queen to a7 move, and now you don't have anything more than a perpetual, for example, knight b6. Check, the king can even go to b8 because there are no good discoveries here. You're just going to have to, repeat moves here, and there's nothing better. So after f captures on e4, queen to e3, stopping this queen to a7 move, and now there is nothing more to be done here. Now, if we try, and this is pretty much the last big line of the game that we're going to show, if pawn to f5, which is the best move recommended by the engine, the win is spectacular. I have no idea, how much of it Bodhana saw, but as she played into all of this, obviously, it was either great intuition or she calculated it all. After rook captures on b3, now this is impossible. And queen a8 also doesn't work. Knight b6 check just forks the king and the queen. So you would have to go, let's say, queen g7, you threaten mate, and now g3. You even have time for this. And this can never be captured because the rook just comes to c1 and you completely destroy black's defenses. So king d7, and bear in mind, I'm only playing the top engine moves to defend for black, just to show you how rich of a position it is. Queen a7 check, king to e8, and now knight to c7 with check. King to f7, or, you go to f8 and then knight captures, again forks the king and the queen. So you have to go to f7, not much better, and now rook b6. Even this is possible, and you have time for it. And now there's not much to be done. Bishop to d7, rook to d1, even time for this, and let's say f4, whatever. Knight captures on e6. King captures, rook b captures, and now, okay, you're going to start capturing here, or you go down the board and you get checkmated. It doesn't really matter. King to f7, you're going to play rook captures, rook captures, rook captures. King wherever, you're going to win the black queen, and okay, just capture a pawn and then win the game however you want. So that is the idea behind queen to e3. And okay, Mariya decides that it's not worth it. She goes bishop captures on d5 instead. C captures, opens up a discovery. King to d7, and now queen to f4. Going after the f7 pawn. King e8 defending, queen captures on e4, and the rook to g6. So Mariya is defending valiantly. Or you can play all of the top engine moves you want here, but the position is just lost. Queen f3. What do you play? Again, rook captures on b3 is coming. We have rook to b8 defending, rook to c6. Again, just preparing to completely shatter black's defenses. We have pawn to e5, rook e to c1. We have king to d8, and now even queen h3, controlling that c8 square, but also going for queen captures on h7. Not a lot you can do here. Pawn to h6. We have queen to h4 check, king to d7, and now queen to c4. Queen to b5, dreaming of a queen trade because the material is equal, but of course not. Rook c7 check. We have king to e8, queen to h4, and now pawn to f6, queen to h5, pinning the rook, and queen to d3 defending. And you can win this many different ways, but there's one move that forces instant resignation. So while I give you a couple of seconds, pause the video and win the game for Bodhana. The quickest win and the one that Bodhana played is rook to g7. This is what she played, and he was in this position on move 36 that former women's world champion Mariya Muzychuk resigned the game, as there is nothing more to be done here. You're just going to win the free rook, and that's it. No way to defend it. And even if you try something like this, it doesn't matter. You're getting checkmated. King to d8, queen captures, king e8, and this will be checkmate. So yeah, absolutely incredible achievement by Bodhana Sivanandan, taking down the former women's world champion Mariya Muzychuk, a grandmaster. I think this makes Bodhana youngest girl ever to defeat a grandmaster. But yeah, all in all, just an incredible achievement. Ukraine did beat England 3-1. All of the other boards, England lost, but Bodhana a spectacular victory on board one for England. And I think everyone will be waiting to see every game that Bodhana plays now after this spectacular victory. Even though she was already known to be a prodigy, a very strong player, everyone was interested. You know, after taking down a player like Mariya Muzychuk, that is a completely different story. So yeah, huge congratulations to her. Very much looking forward to what she does next, and I will keep you guys informed as usual. I would like to thank P.A. Bauer, Gerard St. Pierre, Brazos Valley Chess Society, Francesco Corradi, and Uzi Shale for your contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot. I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing to check up on your wonderful suggestions and whatever else happens in the chess world. Thank you all. I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day. And if you also want to play like Bodhana and take down a former women's world champion, first link in the description below. Download Lotus Chess and improve your chess to infinity and beyond. See you soon.